Someone followed me on my morning run. At first, I didn't think anything of the blob of pink flesh and neon green clothing far behind me on the trail. But as I made one turn after another, I noticed that the blob stayed on my tail. No, it was getting larger. Uneasily, I sped up. It was just paranoia, I knew, but someone tapped me on the shoulder. I whirled around, my hands raised defensively. Neon green tracksuit, brown hair pulled into a tousled ponytail. She looked like an entirely average young woman, except her expression was all wrong. Her eyes were open too wide, framing her irises with a ring of frantic red veins. Her mouth was pulled into a fixed smile, like the corners of her lips had been pinned to her cheeks. She spoke, her face not moving except for her tongue flicking out between bright white teeth. "It's not in your attic." Then her face dropped into a relaxed expression, and she jogged past me. I stood there for a moment, my brain stuttering, before I convinced myself that it must have been a prank of some sort. Pushing the incident from my mind, I went home, showered, and headed to work. But her words stuck with me. There had been sounds from my attic last night, thuds and groans overhead at 3 a.m. Animals on the roof, I thought, the wind whipping through the branches of the old oak. But what if it had been something more sinister? As soon as I got home that evening, I went to my bedroom and pulled down the ladder to the attic. The dust-covered rungs led up into stifling blackness, a dark slash in the ceiling that held its breath as it waited for me to enter. I grabbed a flashlight and a hammer from my toolbox before climbing up. The attic looked exactly as I remembered it, every surface covered in alternating stripes of pale wood and staticky insulation. Nothing looked amiss until I got to the far end, where I found a dark stain that spanned several planks. The insulation in between was darker too, an unsettling reddish-brown. I touched one of the planks. It was wet. A slimy monster, the paranoid voice at the back of my head suggested, feasting on gory prey. Or, my common sense argued back, a water leak. Satisfied, I headed back down, making a mental note to call a handyman. Still, I slept fitfully that night, my ears straining for every whisper of sound. The floorboards creaked constantly, but the attic, thankfully, was silent. Exhausted, I called an Uber to work the next morning. The driver, a middle-aged man with round glasses and thinning hair, chatted amiably about the weather as he pinched and zoomed on the route on his phone. He stopped mid-sentence. Confused, I looked up from buckling my seatbelt. Number bulging eyes, cracked lips, hoarse words slipping through an unnaturally stretched smile. "It's not under your bed."